what I was actively doing was telling people in church, and especially the church leaders around Southeast Asia, gonna be something that's gonna be important for the churches, and end-time transfer wealth for the body of Christ. Obviously, churches being conservative. So I kind of got kicked out from multiple churches in Southeast Asia. In the early days of my crypto space, I was consistently called a scammer because I was in Bitcoin. But obviously, if we fast forward now, when they see me on TV, they see me in newspapers, magazines and so on, they kind of no longer stop calling me a scammer. I just want to live a better world by bringing a parallel financial ecosystem to the world where the common man can have their sovereignty back.
Dunstan, thank you so much for coming in on the show. I feel like I have to start with your early years and how you were like as a kid growing up.
Well, I was a simple Singaporean kid who grew up in a poor home actually. I was in public housing all the way to like 2 years ago. Yeah, but that's because I made a choice not to use any of the Bitcoin and change it to fiat, because I don't believe that fiat is of any value. So I told my wife, told my family, we're gonna sacrifice and I'm not gonna use any of the Bitcoins that I mine. So in the early days, when I was young, I generally didn't wanna attend school and so on. But weirdly enough, when we had the Mensa test, that was in Singapore, I was one of those that actually passed the Mensa test with a high score. And I was one of those that NASA actually picked out to try to be an astronaut in a sense, but I didn't accept the offer.
Tell me about the less obvious reasons as to why you ended up where you are today and achieved what you've achieved today.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So what happened was because of an accident of me like downloading a game which allowed me to start mining Bitcoin in like 2009 and 2010. I started that, but at that point of time I was also in church, and I was very active in church. But what I was actively doing was telling people in church, and especially the church leaders around Southeast Asia, that Bitcoin is going to be something that's going to be important for the churches. It's going to be an end-time transfer of wealth for the body of Christ. But obviously, churches being conservative, that's not going to end well. So I kind of got kicked out from multiple churches in Southeast Asia, and that propelled me to go on a lonely journey into the cryptocurrency space.
Okay, let's just push back a little bit. When you were like 7, 8, 9, what did you want it to be when you grew up?
When I was 7, 8, 9, interestingly, I told you I had an opportunity to be an astronaut, so that was one of those I wanted to be. I wanted to be a scientist, I wanted to be a singer and an actor. So there were a couple of things I wanted to do, but interestingly enough, all these things became opportunities for me. I was given an opportunity to sign up with a record label, which I rejected due to my parents wanting me to go to university. The astronaut thing, I rejected also. So many of the things that I wanted to do, I rejected it, although the opportunities were placed in front of me.
Why did you reject us being an astronaut in the first place?
Well, firstly, like when you were 7 years old, and then you have like people coming over to you and they look a bit weird. They're smart, right? The people who come over are actually extremely smart, but yet they are not so attractive looking and so on. So as a kid, right, it's like, nah, I don't want to be one of them.
How about your parents? What did they want you to be when you grew up?
Well, they obviously, like any other Chinese Asian parents, they want you to be a doctor, they want you to be a lawyer, and all the rest of the other major professions, right? But those were all things that I didn't want. I wasn't interested. I didn't like school. I'm always sleeping in the class all the way even to university. I was always sleeping in the class. I was never really paying attention.
Talk to me about the lowest point of your life.
The lowest point of my life was when I was actually rejected by the churches. Yeah, because you see, when I attended church, it was, you wanting some level of acceptance, having a social group, having friends and so on. The lowest point was when these friends, because of church leaders rejecting me, they also turned their backs on me. So that was actually, those few years were the lowest point of my life. But interestingly, it was those few years that allowed me to gain the strength to be alone. And that was important because in the early days of crypto, right, especially if you are in Asia, you better be alone because like regulators, they don't want people to go into crypto. Like your relatives and so on would think that Bitcoin is a scam and so on. So in the early days of my crypto space, I was consistently called a scammer because I was in Bitcoin. I was consistently called a scammer because I was in cryptocurrencies and so on. But obviously, right, if we fast forward now, when they see me on TV, they see me on like newspapers, magazines and so on, they kind of no longer stop calling me a scammer.
It's like a complete turnaround.
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround, yeah.
Talk to me about when you first joined the church organization. What was it about church that made you stick to it and your faith grew stronger even more? Like, what was the underpinning driver for passion in serving the church?
Okay, so interestingly, when the first time I joined the church was because I just broke up with a girlfriend. Well, my wife doesn't want to hear that, but I just broke up with a girlfriend and I went through depression. I don't know why it was just this one and I went through depression. So my friend asked me to go to church, say that church is going to help me go through depression. I'm like, okay, why not? So I just went. And interestingly enough, the first time when I went, I got saved, I received Christ. And after receiving Christ, it wasn't a religion to me, it was more of a relationship between me and God. So that relationship brought me through, the entire church situation and also brought me to want to, so I started serving in church, I think I was in church 4 days out of 7 days a week all the time. So, but that, is not going to be helpful for a young adult because, you are supposed to work, you're supposed to earn money and so on, right? So yeah, so it's a disconnect between the real world and the church world itself.
Well, it's great to be a modern day warrior at the same time, maintaining that spiritual side of yours.
Correct. So even though I lost faith in church, but I didn't lose faith in my relationship with God. Yeah, because that remains. A relationship is a relationship, but if it's just a human construct like a church, it's just a social gathering in a sense.
What are your regrets in life?
My regrets in life would be not traveling earlier. Because as an Asian, especially a Singapore Asian, you are consistently having the mindset that Singapore is awesome, Singapore is stable, Singapore is safe, and all other countries are dangerous, there are guns everywhere and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, crime everywhere and so on, right? But actually, when I started traveling, especially when I started learning about Bitcoin, when I go around the world, started meet new people, starting having new perspective and so on, things change. I no longer see things in a small little container, in a small ecosystem, but I saw that, the whole world was consistently changing and moving all around. It's dynamic. So, and then meeting new people, meeting the poorest of people to extremely powerful people like presidents in different countries and so on, it brings different perspectives. Why is it that they are able to make certain decisions? Why is it that the people who are poor make certain decisions in life? So with that sort of spectrum of the sort of people that I meet, it kind of gives me a big flexibility in the way I start communicating and the way I start thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, it opens up your world.
Yeah, it opens up. So it's interesting. So if only I started traveling when I was younger, that might have shaped me even more in the early days.
When was your best phase in your life?
The best phase in my life, I think, is yet to come. weirdly enough, I think that I'm moving forward, things are gonna get better and better. Like right now, I'm receiving offers to become ambassadors of certain places. I'm being supported by different tribes across Africa. I'm working with parts of the United Nations and so on. So I'm seeing that things are gonna get even more exciting. And I see that in 5 years' time, Bitcoin is going to become a world reserve currency compared to the USD. So when that happens, things are going to get even more interesting. Yeah.
What motivates you about the space and to work in general?
Well, I no longer see work as work, or what I'm doing as work. What motivates me is that there's a lot of injustice in the world, and the world is in a mess right now. It's in a huge mess, and that the world is in its worst state, in a sense, in modern history. So this motivates me because I wanna bring changes to different countries around the world, to different governments, to work with like the royals and so on, just to make sure that their country has a new way out. Especially that they wouldn't be affected by the USD, they wouldn't be affected by global currency controls and so on. So that's what drives me forward.
What is the legacy you want to leave the world behind?
Well, I just want to leave a better world, but I want to live a world better by bringing a parallel financial ecosystem to the world, where the layman, the common man, can have their sovereignty back, where they are able to transact without being affected by the banks. They're able to transact without being affected by governments, by royals around the world. Is to give back sovereignty back to the people. And if I could achieve even just a part of that, I think that would already make the world a better place.
Dunstan, you have such a beautiful soul. You have such an inspiring story. So thank you so much for expressing it with us. I really appreciate you for being open and vulnerable and just being authentic and real. So truly wonderful having you here.
Thank you so much.